everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nation of Immigrants. Today, I'm very happy to have with us Daniel Nalladurai from 61st Productions in Queens, New York. 61st Production focuses on using film to bring out the human element in our businesses. So, without further ado, let's listen to my interview with Daniel and get some golden nuggets from the interview and from his journey as an entrepreneur and what it means to be an immigrant in today's society. So Daniel, thank you very much. We're very excited to have you here with us. Can you tell us your full name?
Sure. It's Daniel Nalladurai.
All right. And which company are you affiliated with right now?
With the 61st Productions.
Okay. Tell us about 61st. What's your mission? What do you guys do day to day?
Sure. We're a local film and media production company based in Queens, New York. A lot of our mission has to deal with storytelling by way of filmmaking. And a lot of the stories that we tell, whether it's our personal documentary or creative projects, it almost exclusively revolves around stories that are on the outskirts of a city, stories that tend to not get told, tend to be forgotten. So,
without infringing on your clients, privacy, are there any types of stories, that aren't being told and that you're able to highlight with your art and production?
Yeah. So, like, to give you an example, some of our clients are based in Queens, and a lot of that. Some of our clients have been like nonprofit organizations, things like that, that are or local arts organizations, and they're looking to kind of highlight their mission and their story. And a lot of their mission and their story kind of aligns with our mission, which is, making stories that are invisible visible. So, and that naturally, because we live in Queens, the most diverse place in the planet, involves telling stories of immigrants. And whether that be, immigrants that have just recently come to Queens or New York, or first generation immigrants, that are, the children of immigrants. So a lot of our work has been kind of surrounding that. And because I myself am a first generation immigrant, a child of an immigrant, we are able to kind of like relate to those subjects that we are privileged and honored to tell those stories of. So it allows us a different type of angle and perspective, when we tell those stories, because it's not from an outsider's perspective. It's there's more of a level of sympathy there, or.
So who's your usual client? I mean, you definitely dive deep into storytelling. I think that's a powerful way to, exhibit and showcase, people's talents and contribution. Is it mostly like small business owners or other folks in the community?
Yeah, our clients range from smaller clients to local businesses to larger corporate clients as well.
Oh, okay.
So we do provide a range of services. We're not exclusively limited to large corporate clients or exclusively limited to smaller clients as well. I mean, we're artists and filmmakers at the end of the day. So we know how hard work is to come by amongst artists, especially, knowing, it's difficult to find work as an artist. So, we've been privileged to work with clients and get work. So we're not in the business of saying no.
Yeah, sure.
Comes our
Few
way.
people are, believe me.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, like we're not too selective with who we work with, but that, which is why we do work with large and small clients.
So your product and service, I mean, and by the way, I want to give a public shout out to John Cho from the Flushing Chamber of Commerce, who highly recommended you because of this ability to storytell that you've been able to accomplish. How does your product differ from like your run-of-the-mill 30-second commercial for whether it's a small business or whoever. You know, I mean, you guys bring something more special to the table. What would you say that is?
Um, I I'm not sure what that is. It's hard for us to articulate that. Whenever someone asks us to talk about what makes us different than another production company or another filmmaker or an artist, it's really difficult to answer that question, because it's basically describing your aesthetic choices and your instinctual choices as a filmmaker, as an artist. And that's extremely hard to articulate and describe. I guess the best way that we can, or I can answer that is that my partner, who's also my wife, and and we run this company together. It just so happens that our artistic choices that we make as filmmakers, and the angles that we choose to explore, the perspectives in which we choose to approach a particular project, so our clients have really liked our perspective, whatever that project is. So, a client can approach us and say, hey, I'm looking to do a video about my company to showcase my product or service, and then we have that conversation with them. It's like, what are your goals for this video? What do you want to communicate for this commercial or video or this project? And then we have a conversation, and then we kind of adjust their vision or scope or whatever it may be, so it's really hard to say, to come back to your question, like what makes us different. All I can really say is that every single person, as a filmmaker and as an artist, is going to have a different perspective or a different way to shoot or frame or anything like that, just because they're naturally different. They have different lived experiences, so on and so forth. So we've been lucky, had wonderful partnerships with our clients, that they like our work and that other people reach out to us. I hope that continues. I hope
based on your work product, I think it will.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Let me give you my observation from somebody that's not an artist, right? And I've
Yeah.
seen, like everybody these days, I've seen a few videos. I'm a business owner myself. I've had, ads, commercials, and whatnot done. I think what stands out to me about your work is you really bring out the human element in these, whether it's businesses or organizations. And to me, it's vastly different from just watching a 30-second ad saying, oh, like for example, if it was about my firm, oh, Alexander Law Firm, located, in Queens Crossing, providing all kinds of immigration services, asylum, court, please call us at 718. It's not that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, to me, and I think to a lot of people, what you do will really stand out, because I mean, that kind of human element will definitely make you stand out from everyone else who, if they don't know the human element from other competitors and they can relate to you, that's an enormous business advantage that you're giving your clients.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, if like a specific comparison, like an infomercial versus like a commercial that has some type of storytelling aspect of it, is going to be much different. And like you said, what storytelling does, what we try to do as filmmakers is provide that human element, which is what the medium of film and the visual medium does, right? It allows you to create empathy really well, because you can relate to somebody visually, so yeah, I think the way you described it is kind of how we approach our projects, is from the perspective of like filmmakers and storytelling, like how can someone connect to this,
Right. Yeah, what you said is absolutely correct. We have a few videos about our firm, and we've had clients that, the clients that have watched our videos are very different from the clients who found us on Google. The clients who watched our videos, they're pretty much ready to sign if they come to the office. Whereas the ones that found on Google, they want to know what you're about and whether you're good, right? And so, yeah, it's definitely this day and age. I think you have to have video presence as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah. It's a great way to allow folks into your world to, uh, you know, give them a little taste of who you are, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So Daniel, this is, it's a really cool undertaking. How did you get involved? Did you always like film production? How was that?
Yeah. I mean, initially, it's funny, I wanted to become an attorney like yourself to get into some type of civil, uh, civil rights law or something like that.
Mm.
And then my path kind of changed and went down the route of film and went to school for it. And then ended up working in the film and TV industry for a few years as an editor,
Oh, wow.
and as also as a cinematographer on different projects, and realized after doing that for like 5-6 years that I think it's about time that start working for myself,
Mm.
and start building equity for myself, because and along with my now wife, we decided to start that company because we thought we could do that. She also worked in the film and TV industry in the art department, and we
Oh, perfect.
figured,
Okay, so you both have a
yeah,
background. Yeah.
yeah, and then we decided to start this company together because we thought that, for lack of a better word, I don't know if you can curse here, but why bust our ass for someone else where you can bust your ass for yourself?
No
You know,
problem there. Yeah.
you know, and that's what we might as well build equity for ourselves. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, there's no point in, at least the we were naive in thinking that. Obviously now we know a lot more than we did back then,
Sure.
but nonetheless, like, the our thought process and our state of mind, even today we still believe, which is like, there's a lot of folks out there, it's hard for minorities and women within the film industry to
Mm.
kind of to get where you want to be,
Mm.
and in order for you to do that, you have to, there's a pecking order, there's a system in place, and it's hard to penetrate that system. um, you know so it's difficult. So when you're working as a lower level employee for another production or company, you know, at the end of the day, you can get caught up into that world, and sooner or later, like, years pass by, and then when you look back on it, you don't have anything for yourself. It's
Mm.
your small contribution to someone else's vision.
Right.
Um, Whereas here with our company, we're completely in control of our uh, work and our projects, you know, and we have something to show for it at the end of the day. It's equity, um, we have creative projects to show for it. We have something
Mm.
underneath our belt,
You have
because
equity, and you have the independence to operate how you see fit, right? I mean, I think these
exactly.
projects require that creativity that might be stifled depending on who you work for. Did you ever feel that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you work for larger companies, you know, you're you're not going to have that say, you know, as if you're working for yourself or even working for a smaller company. You wear more hats working for a smaller organization than you would do for a larger organization.
Mm.
Larger organizations at one time were small like us, and they
Mm.
built themselves up to be in a position to hire very targeted, very specific job responsibilities and roles.
Mm.
uh, but when you get that big and you're hiring for these very specific tasks, that person may not get that wholesome experience. It's just that they do one task, and that's it. But our ultimate goal is to do creative film work, like fictional storytelling, and as
Really?
well
Tell
as
me about that. Okay. Yeah.
non-fictional storytelling as well. And
Like what kind of projects? That's interesting.
like narrative cinema, like feature films and things like that. So that's something where that's where we want to be and we want to end up at. So we're working towards that as well by writing and things like that.
Excellent. Well, you have our support. Is there anything we can do? That's awesome. Um, Tell the viewers a little bit about what it's like to, be a business owner. So you had worked for, some companies. You took the leap of faith. You saw, you know what, I think it's much better off, working for myself than doing this. And you guys did it. How long have you had 61st Productions, and how has that experience been as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think we've had it for about 3 years, I think a little more than 3 years now. I think it's a difficult endeavor to start your own company. It hasn't been easy, there's always
Hmm.
been ups and downs. You don't know, um, sometimes you don't know when your next client, where it's coming from, how it's coming, and how much you're going to get paid. So it's always a kind of an up and down type of
It's
thing,
not for the
especially when
faint of heart.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when you start out, like you have basically nothing, and you're trying to make something work from it. And then, you the challenge when you start out as a film company is, uh, what happens in the beginning is a lot of the clients you end up uh, getting for the first time don't have the budget, right, to
Mm,
do what they really want to do,
right.
and we didn't have the resources in the beginning uh, to make something that uh, looks, amazing, or to have, the luxury of time or whatever it may be.
Mm,
So in the beginning, you end up just really kind of pulling things together, and really scrapping it together to make something work. But that's what filmmakers do. It's about problem solving,
mm.
and so, we were trained to do that, more or less. And so in the beginning, it wasn't easy. It was a struggle. It's still a struggle, but we're better off. We're in a better place today than we were, obviously, when we started.
Absolutely.
And we've been blessed. Like, we've been blessed to grow our clients, to learn what we've learned, in our doing business as a film company, and we're still learning, and we're still growing. So it's been it's been a blessing to come this far.
Absolutely. And you've highlighted something that's very important. Anybody that is wanting to get into business, it never gets easy. I've had my own business for 7 years, so a little longer than you, not too much longer. And we just have a different set of problems. But I think like you communicated, I am in a position where I'm very grateful, and the problems I have now, I would rather have these problems than when I first started out, right? And
Right.
and and I think that sounds like what you're saying as well.
Yeah.
So the hustle of the entrepreneur, it is constant, and I think people need to know that when they get in. But if you have something that you're passionate about, like you seem to be very passionate about what you do, I think that helps drive you. Would you say that's been the case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you wouldn't hustle if you don't love what you're doing. You know what I mean? Or if you're not seeing any benefit from it. Whatever,
Mm,
if that's financial, or if that's I guess emotional. Like, it's, you wouldn't, if you don't see a benefit in the hustle, then what's the point of hustling? Uh, and being an entrepreneur and working for yourself. So it's
other
definitely,
than
yeah.
financial, um, what benefits have you gotten out of having your own business and helping your clients tell their story? What feelings do you get from that, or even how it's helped your clients as well?
Right, right. I mean, like, it's kind of like what I was saying before, which is like, that you're building your own equity, right? And that's, it's not a financial thing, like equity. Uh, I'm not exclusively talking about financial equity. I'm also talking about, like, creative equity,
Mm,
and the skills that you learn along the way, the lessons that you learn along the way. It can be applied not only to filmmaking, but to just life in general. How you deal with people, and so on and so forth. Uh, and also just, figuring out, like, it's a lot of running your own company or doing business for yourself. I think there's a lot of, like, it seems harder. It's hard, right? But
mm,
it seems more complicated than it actually is. I think it's actually rather simple, you know. I think it's just like you have to be have to take a risk, right? For me, what it's really taught me was, how to navigate that world of, doing business for yourself, and not knowing where that next paycheck is going to be coming from. You have to train yourself mentally to kind of figure out a way how to navigate that, and we're still
Yeah,
learning how to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it can be
absolutely.
stressful. It's stressful. And that's why I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs that, start out, it's stressful, it's extremely stressful. And sometimes that can make or break you, and make or break you or your business. So
Sure.
like navigate, it's a balance, just like life, trying to figure out the right balance, what works for you. Everyone's different.
So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there who want to do something like you're doing. They want to pursue their passion. They want to open their own business, but they feel stuck because they don't understand that mindset that you just spoke about, right? You said you need
Hmm.
to be foolish, and you need to be willing to take risks. Can you take us through how you did it, and what mindset changes you had to make, if any, to go from, I imagine it was somewhat of a stable position you had, and your wife had, to going out and opening your own business and not knowing how you're going to pay your bills the next month.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to it's really just like you said, like it's like just being naive and not knowing, sometimes not knowing is like, what do they say, ignorance is bliss, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. In this case,
So
oh yeah.
yeah, and I think most business owners are blissfully ignorant. You know what I mean? You just don't know what's going to happen. It's the unknown. Either you embrace the unknown, or you're afraid of it.
Do
And
you
if you're
see
gonna,
that as an advantage, not necessarily knowing all the challenges that are coming up ahead?
yeah, of course, I think it's a great advantage if if people can just kind of live in the moment, and not know, and not like it's obvious. It's like a catch-22, right? It's like when you start a business, sometimes it's like, what's your business plan? Like, what's your 5-year strategy? What's your 10-year strategy? People, you go to I'm assuming, I haven't been to business school, but my assumption is that, if you go to get your MBA or something, like, you'll take those classes that talk about strategic planning and all these types of things. And sometimes, you look at examples of other successful, or like ultra successful business owners and entrepreneurs, like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, or whoever, like Kanye West, who's like, or Jay-Z, like they've taken extreme amounts of risk. They're not
Yeah.
thinking about the 10-year plan. They're just doing it because they did it. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes you just have to do it. You just can't meditate too much about, what's my plan, or what's this, or what's that, because then you can
Paralysis
get,
by analysis, right? Or
yeah,
analysis
exactly,
for whatever. Yeah, but I mean, it comes to the point where you have to do it. You've done your homework. You plan. I mean, are you going to
yeah,
sit there and plan forever?
yeah, exactly. You can't plan too much. At some point you got to start building your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's our approach, and that's always been our approach. Like, we just have to go out and do it. Like, obviously, don't make any extremely stupid decisions. Educate yourself and do
Yeah.
all of that. Like, and that's one thing. Like, we're running a film production company, and we're not just doing it blindly.
Of
Like,
course.
we educate ourselves. We do what we have to do, um, to know, how to create films or videos or whatever it may be. So, we educate ourselves. We just don't blindly do it, and
Of course.
we never stop learning. We could have been happy with what we did, and when we first started our company, like, we're embarrassed. Like, we look back at some of the early stuff we did, and it's like, we feel embarrassed, like, oh man, like look how far we've come from that,
That's good. That's good. What's
So
what's the difference in terms of quality or like the kind of work or projects you're
I
working
mean,
on?
just the level of it's not only a quality thing. It's just like what our creative choices that we made, like the little things that can go a long way, but and I'm sure like 5 years from now we'll look back at the work we're doing now and feel the same way, right? we're I
Mm,
don't think like we never want to feel satisfied with our work, especially with creative work, because then you'll
you
get
can't.
stagnant.
Yeah.
Stagnation is like the enemy here, and you can never be stagnant. We always got to keep pushing, creative boundaries, creative stuff, like, and that's why we always like, we love film. We love watching it. We love studying it. So whenever we can, we always do it, so. Um,
And so what drew you to film? I know that at some point you're considering law. What drew you, to this area?
um, you know, it's there. Getting into law was my way of saying, like, once again, like naive is like you want to help enact change in the world,
Mm,
help people. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You want to try to make an impact. You want to, you know, do something good, and meaningful. And civil rights law was, or going down that some type of route related to that,
Mm,
was my way of doing that. And then I had, and then I realized, like, somewhere along that way, I wrote and directed like a stage play at here at a local place here in Queens, and that kind of um, was a great experience for me to realize how you can connect with people
mm,
through storytelling, and how you can communicate themes and things like that, and enact and have an impact, or do something meaningful that way, um, so and that's how I got down that route of film, is like I felt like you can make, at least from my perspective at that point, was making a greater impact via storytelling, which is what I think great lawyers do, is storytelling,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure you can relate to that. It is like, it's about telling the story of your client, or telling the story of whatever it may be, and relating that to you know uh, you know um, whoever your audience is. So and I think that's how I made that transition. And obviously, and then I fell in love with, it's always been, with cinema and all that. It's always been a great passion and joy, and I loved
Mm.
watching it and studying it. And then once I started to get behind the camera, framing, doing all of that, it just opened up a whole new world.
Let me ask you, you said that you directed like a stage play in Queens. How did you get involved in that?
It was through like the local church, got involved that way, and then just was able to. Um,
Had you ever done anything like that before?
no, never. Yeah.
So I asked this because this is the value of taking on experiences that put you outside your comfort zone, because
Right.
through that experience you had a life-changing epiphany, one could say,
Hmm.
you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned that you're a first generation immigrant. Tell us about that a little bit, to the extent that you're comfortable, disclosing, these
Yeah.
things about you and your family. But I think
Hmm.
it helps bring this in full circle. I mean, the people watching this are, for the most part, either first, second generation immigrants who want to be doing something like you're doing.
Right. Yeah. My parents immigrated here during the late '70s. They came to New York. They're from South India, um, and I was born and raised in Queens, New York, and that's where they ended up. And so my experience growing up was, I think like most first generation immigrants is like caught between two worlds. It's like,
Okay. Yeah,
you
tell
know,
us about that.
yeah, it's just like the world at home, which is, you know, culturally different. It's culturally South Indian,
Hmm.
and the world outside on the streets is New York.
Yeah.
So, you're caught between these two different worlds. One's, uh, depending on uh, who your parents are, and you know, some people have obviously more conservative or more strict, things like that.
Mm.
So like I was caught between those two worlds growing up. So there's always like that treading
Did
that
it
line of balance and all that.
did it help being in New York? Where I imagine a lot of your classmates also had their own world at home, whether it's, South India, China, Ecuador. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
What
sure.
was that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like it was no, it was easier not to feel like an outsider here in New York. I
Mm.
had family that lived in the suburbs, in like upstate New York, and visiting them like for the summer or whatever, um, was a completely different experience. You
Uh,
easily felt like an outsider when you
yeah,
were there
yeah,
than you felt like here. Obviously, here growing up, I had friends, you know, um, that were in a similar situation to me.
mm,
They just came from a different place, whether, like you said, whether it be from Korea, China, Haiti, whatever. So it was easier to relate to folks here, because it was very diverse. I think
mm,
some people find an easier time finding their cliques and gelling and feeling like they know who they are very
right,
easily, very quickly.
yeah,
Some people don't. And I feel like I fall into that latter category. I don't
mm,
think it's hard for me to fit in a box sometimes. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I think that's a challenge. I mean, I came here when I was 7, um, and the challenge for us is you're kind of made to feel like you need to fit in one box or another box. But fortunately or unfortunately, I say fortunately, right? Because
Yeah.
this is what we've been given. We fit in, we have to be accommodated into several boxes. I mean, this is our story.
Right.
It's we haven't been here for 5, 6 generations, right? We come from a vastly different culture. We had
Right.
to assimilate. Um, you know, I mean, you
Yeah.
you were born here. You don't have an accent. I have an accent. It's the footprints that have
Right. Right.
defined our experience.
Yeah. For
And
sure. For
so
sure.
there is no one box to hold us. We can't be contained.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, and I think you make it. And it's exactly what it feels like. It's like you have like it's like an identity thing. You don't know, you know, where you end up. You know what I mean? Like it's because so much of, at least in America, the culture here in America has a lot to do with your identity.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think it shouldn't. And then obviously, given the history here in this country, in our country, it's that identity is very closely tied to your race and your ethnic
Mm,
background. You know,
sure. Yeah.
um, but I think in like 20 or 30 years, you know, um, as yeah, I don't think there's people are going to be so mixed,
Hmm.
that it's going to kind of erase a little bit, that type of ethnic race identity and identifying people there and like, you know, all that kind of stuff, because not everyone has the same experience. You're like, you can take someone with the same ethnic background as mine, same situation, but they can have a completely different experience than me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, like you were mentioning, just drive 2 hours upstate or whatnot.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been a different experience. Not
Yeah.
worse necessarily, but different.
Just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Let me ask you, as a kid, did you ever find yourself, because this happens to a lot of immigrants, I think I went through it, for a while. We want to be so American, right? We want to fit into that one box that we
Right.
kind of start pushing away our culture a little bit. Like, we don't want to speak the language or
For
those
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
customs. Did you ever like find yourself doing that for a period of time?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. There's like that time where, like you you're embarrassed of it.
Yeah.
You're embarrassed of it. And you don't associate yourself with the the culture, or like if you're as a kid, like if your parents like dropped you off at school and spoke to you in your native tongue, their native tongue, like which is Tamil in my case,
Okay.
you'd be embarrassed. You're like, oh no, why are you talking in Tamil? Or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, or like obviously things have changed now. Like I think that when we were growing up, like, or I think like even back then, like you're embarrassed to bring your food. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you're embarrassed like about that kind of stuff. But now
Right.
it's like totally different. People love Indian food. People love Spanish food.
Yeah.
People love soup, dumplings, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
like,
That's what makes Queens great, man. Yeah, making my
yeah,
mouth water.
so, and that's what happens, I think, when like folks like I think ourselves come of age, start their businesses, start telling their story and living their lives, as adults. You start to have a society that's more inclusive, I think,
Yeah.
given the diverse background.
So now
Uh,
looking back and seeing your diverse background, I mean, are you able to see it now as an asset?
yeah, I think so. It's definitely an asset in the sense that it's given me a much different perspective on life.
Hmm.
Obviously, growing up, I went to India, often, so you get to um, see how you could have ended up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I'm sure you've been to, is it Ecuador, you said?
I'm from Brazil. Yeah.
From Brazil. Like I'm sure
Uh-huh.
you've been to Brazil growing up,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and you get to see like your peers,
Yeah.
and especially as a kid, and you go back and you see another kid your age, completely
Like
different life. You know
that
what
could
I
have
mean?
been me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a crazy feeling. That first time I went, it was like a crazy feeling, at least the first time I went that I can remember, and so it's definitely, I think it gives you a different perspective on life and things like that. Different people look at it a different way. I tended to look at it in a more hopeful way, like,
Yeah.
in an optimistic way,
I think you have to. I mean, this is what we've been blessed with, right? If we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly looking at what we don't have, who we're not, we were created a certain way to do certain things for a reason,
Right, right,
and especially when I speak to younger people, younger immigrants, I really try to instill them, that pride in their culture. It's not that you're better than somebody who has been here 6 generations. I mean, everybody has their advantage. If you're Caucasian, you've been here for 6 generations, there's some advantages to that, right?
right, right,
But if you're like, your background, my background, there are advantages to it, and we have to play to our advantages and use what we've been blessed with.
right,
I want to see, and I'm seeing it. I think you are too. The younger immigrants now, they're pretty proud of their culture. They go to the ethnic restaurants. They tell their friends
right,
about it.
right,
They'll Instagram it, right?
right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think cycles end up repeating themselves. If you look at like the history of America and the immigrant history, like, the Italian and Irish immigrants, when they initially immigrated here,
hmm.
during like the 20s, 30s, and before that too, I think like the late 1800s, they were embarrassed of their culture. They
Yeah,
were, forced to assimilate, and now if you look at those second, third, fourth generation Italian and Irish immigrants, they're extremely proud, right, of where they come from and
now it's
whatnot.
cool. It's cool to be Irish. It's cool to be
Yeah,
Italian. Yeah.
exactly, right. So I think that's ultimately what's going to happen with that immigration wave that happened in the 60s,
Mm,
after that law passed. I forget there's like that immigration law that passed in the 1960s that opened up the floodgates from,
mm,
Asia and I think Latin America
yeah.
for skilled workers and all that to come over. And they so once that happened, it was, you know Indians, Chinese, Koreans,
Mm.
and Latin Americans that were coming over to this country. So
Well, I
and
think it's
now we're all
happening
growing up.
already. Yeah, it's
Yeah, so
happening
it's all,
already, and this channel is pushing us. That's
yeah,
one of my missions.
yeah, and that, yeah, exactly. And as we become adults, we start telling that story, and through whatever respective careers we all have, and it just spreads that way.
Mm. you know, considering the kind of person you are, your work ethics, you know, how much of that do you attribute to your immigrant parents?
I think probably all of it, just because you see them growing up working hard. My father worked 2 jobs, you know, growing up. So he was kind of, you know, you didn't see much of him growing up, but, you know, you knew he was working 2 jobs for us. Mother obviously worked long hours, would come home, still take care of us, you know, growing up. Had a grandfather that lived with us, and he was working, you know, even until his 90s, you
Wow.
know. So,
Wow.
you know, it was all around us. My uncles, aunts, they're all pretty much, most of them, if not all of them, you know, some of them would work 2 jobs, you know, minimum, you know. So everyone around us growing up in the family, have a big family, you know, they busted, you know, they worked hard, you know, and it was not only my parents, it was, you know, their brothers, their sisters, everybody, you know. So it was constantly around us. That was the normal, right?
Mm.
So for us to do anything different felt not normal. So,
Mm.
you know what I mean? It was, so yeah, growing up with that, I think helps with with the work ethic I have today, I think, you know. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. If there was something, and if you feel okay about it, there's something you could tell your parents, and in gratitude or any kind of observation about the impact that they've had on your life and your journey, what would that be?
I mean, I guess I just that I'm grateful for what they've done, what they've sacrificed. I can only imagine what it must feel like to come to a foreign place, you know, given their circumstances. So I'm extremely grateful for the sacrifices that they had to make, um, you know, to come here. You know, my mother came from a village of like 100 people, and
Wow.
then
Mm.
she came to New York, a city of like 8.5 million.
Wow, that's
You
another
know,
planet.
yeah, exactly. So like I can only
Wow.
imagine what it was like for her, you know. So my father came from a larger city, so I'm sure it was still a jump and a leap for him, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, his
Very.
first job was at Burger King, flipping burgers, you know. So you know, it's like,
Yeah,
you know, so yeah.
no, definitely. Um, I was happy to hear, that you're thankful, for their sacrifice, and you mentioned that they work long hours, right? And that is a common theme with immigrant families, first, second generation, even more. The parents, they want to fight and help the family reach their version of the American dream, but when you
Hmm.
first come here, right, you have to increase your value in the market. You have to start from the bottom. That takes many hours. Um,
Right.
it seems that you understood why your parents did that. It wasn't because they wanted to be absent, right?
Right. No, no, I definitely understood that. It was always apparent to me, you know, because I was pretty much raised by my grandfather. But no, it was definitely apparent. Like their sacrifices, I understood that for sure growing up.
And if you need anything from my end, please let me know. I really appreciate your time. I think this was a great conversation. I think a
Sure.
lot of people can get a lot out of it. So thanks for your
Sure.
time, man.
No, no problem. Thanks for
Yeah,
reaching out, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
no problem. Anything we can do to help your business grow, we're going to do it.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. All the best, Daniel. Take care.
All
We'll
right.
be in
Thank you.
touch. All right.
Bye.
See you. Hey, everyone. We really hope you enjoyed the interview with Daniel. I sure did. I got a lot of golden nuggets out of it. I think golden nugget number one would be to pursue your passion, right? A lot of people just let that drop in their lives. They put it, on the back burner. It really is important, because if you look at all the extremely successful people on the face of this planet, whether or not they're rich entrepreneurs or they made a huge difference in our lives, like Mother Teresa and Gandhi, right? I mean, these were people that did something they were passionate about. So I think if we focus on that, if we use that, we're going to get into the right path for us. Number two, Daniel also gave us an example of how important it is for us to get outside our comfort zone. When we do that, we expose ourselves to situations and to feelings and to experiences that we would not have otherwise. And these could, in fact, be life-changing. And so if he hadn't agreed to participate in a theatrical production, he would not have found his love for film. And his love for film has been an enormous part of his life for so many years. So get outside your comfort zone. You got to do this every once in a while. 3, just being an entrepreneur, right? We heard a story. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. But if you have that burning inside you and it's something you want to do, if you want to build equity, like Daniel says, right, then it is something you really should think about doing and plan as much as you can. But at some point, you're going to have to pull the trigger. Risk taking. Daniel told us that it's important for us to stay foolish, and Steve Jobs actually said the same thing. And so I was really happy to see it come from Daniel. We need to stay foolish because we need to believe, right? And we need to keep going. And it takes a certain foolishness for us to stay in business, for us to keep pursuing our dreams. Because, you know, there's a lot of people around us that might think we're nuts, and we might think we're nuts every once in a while. But if you stay foolish and you keep believing and you keep pursuing it, good things will happen. And finally, embracing your immigrant identity. I think it's so important that immigrants realize that having an immigrant background, identity, language, etc., it's not a liability. It is an asset. It makes you stand out. It gives you a certain set of experiences that allows you to relate to a lot of different people. And so see it as an asset and thank the people that brought you over to the United States for that. All right. Okay, folks, so that's it for today, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye.